when I yap at you guys, you have the rest of class. What? Yeah, I got a lecture now, so grab your notes. I will give you guys. You don't want to take notes? All right, that's fine. I'm going to upload this, but here's the deal. Lectures always will help you get the answers. Azariah, last class, you guys were all stressed out and said it was super hard, right? You all said this was really hard. A lot of you did and didn't have time to complete it. Azariah said this was actually easy because I just used the lecture notes. That's why I lecture at you, all right? I want you guys to know this stuff. I want you guys to be able to work with it and change it and make alterations from what I do. This is also when you use what I lecture and then you just put it into your own words. That is what doing research is finding people that know the information and then just doing that exactly like you would. But then you'd go, well, I got this idea from somebody, and you footnote it. That's different, whatever. All right, I'm going to start. I think that I was out getting my appendix removed the other day when we used this word. All right, today's date is 2/12. If you're taking notes, today's date is 2/12/25, and it is Unit 1, Day 4. It is good to have this information. Keep track of it. Know what I said when I said it. Unit 1, Day 4. All right, I was out getting my appendix removed when you guys looked at John the Baptist, but this is a thing. So he was an ascetic, and he practiced asceticism. So ascetic and asceticism. Those are some big words, very important words that we're going to see and that Jesus is reacting to. Even in today's passage, Jesus reacts to the idea of asceticism. And the reason that I have you guys reading this book, as you can probably tell, there's some cultural background there that is helpful to explain some things, right? We start seeing that Jewish communities that are expecting a very particular Messiah think he's going to be an ascetic. Now, what asceticism is, because I haven't explained it yet, asceticism, can anybody guess from the context of our book today? Or from Bonus that he's been mentioned? All right, asceticism is the intentional practice of depriving yourself of pleasure. Intentionally depriving yourself of pleasure. I don't know how to spell intentionally right now. My brain's not working. Whatever. It's purposefully depriving yourself of pleasure or happiness. Some ascetics would fast for long durations of time. It is what Jesus did when he went into the wilderness and he fasted for 40 days to be tempted by the accuser. It is also what John the Baptist practiced for his entire life by wearing camel fur, eating honey and locusts. He was not eating good, he was eating just enough. So they would fast for a long time, but there were all different types, and many Jews believed that this is what the Messiah would be like, that this is a way of rejecting the world because you do not want anything to do with the world. So there's a few ascetics that are particularly awesome. There were some that actually dug holes so big they couldn't get out and then spent the rest of their lives living in that hole, not allowing anybody to pull them out. But you could throw food to them, and that is how they would survive. They would just live in a hole forever, which is, I don't know if you guys want to do that or not. I would love to see what that would be like. There's one guy that has famously lived on a column, like a 30-foot tall pillar. He just lived on the top of it for however long to practice getting away from the earth and getting away from the world. So when Jesus is rejecting the world, but still being part of it, what he's doing every time is also rejecting this type of rabid asceticism. Right? He's saying, this is not what I want from you. I'm not asking you to practice asceticism. I'm asking you instead to practice something else. In one of the passages, so actually in all three, all three of our passages, this is our biggest similarity, and one of the similarities I like the most is John the Baptist appears, but he sends his disciples to ask Jesus if he's the Messiah. So he sends his disciples to ask, and then Jesus makes a comment about coming eating and drinking. He says, I came eating and drinking. He makes the comment, he's pointing out the hypocrisy of the Pharisees and Sadducees, right? He points out and says, you guys think that John is a crazy person because he's an ascetic, but you think that I'm a glutton because I'm not. So which one do you want me to be? So what he is simultaneously doing is saying we don't have to do this to follow God, and we can do these things, but the ways that you currently have are broken and misaligned. So in all three, he's going to say, you guys are wrong for this. Now, one of our other major things, and this is how, because our timelines are crazy today, and they're just going to get wackier with the stories being in different orders. But one of the things that we have that I like a lot is this sending of the 12. So Mark and Matthew have Jesus actually sending the 12 out, and they describe it, and Jesus goes and says, "You 12 go fight demons." But Luke is going to have Jesus first, have them follow around to follow Jesus and work with him and underneath him. Now, can anybody guess, what does this mean? What's Matthew's theological goal? Anybody remember Matthew's theological goal? Hector, just shout it out. I don't like raised hands.
Jesus expanded the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, Jesus expands the kingdom of heaven. So when he sends the 12 and they're going to a bunch of different places, how is he meeting his theological goal? How is Matthew using this story? By disciples go everywhere, right? Disciples go everywhere and proclaim. Disciples go to proclaim it. This is Matthew building out his theological goal and look, the kingdom of God expands to everybody. We are not like these Jewish communities that live quietly to ourselves. Luke, though, how does he demonstrate it? By making the 12. Right, when Luke has the 12 disciples staying with Jesus, working underneath him as if he's an authority figure, what is he doing there? Anybody want to guess? I'm trying to get you guys to think like this. What he's teaching them, and he's showing all people submit. All people submit to the king. All people submit to the king of Jesus, right? And he's going to have all of the stories with each of these people, each of these events, each of these ideas, because these are the central things. The entire story for all three of these guys are going to hinge around the sending of the 12. And you're going to notice on both sides for Luke is stories of people submitting to Jesus and acknowledging him as king. On both sides for Matthew are people from other places accepting the faith, are different communities, different types of people accepting the gospel of Christ. And for Mark, we get Jesus says not to share the message. Jesus, encourages mystery. Jesus not only encourages the mystery, but in addition to Jesus encouraging the mystery, Jesus implies that he and the Holy Spirit are the same thing. Right? So he's going to start saying, who am I really? Who is the Son of Man? Is he the same as the Holy Spirit? What are you? And he's going to create this mystery and this question. So Mark, they're all going to use the same event for different purposes. I know this is a lot of work to do, but I'm trying to get your guys' brains to start thinking like this. These are some big leaps that we do want to do. Now, I'm going to name something as well. Another big leap, and I'm not going to say that I am committed to this being the case, but I will think there's a good argument for it. I'm going to write his name here. This is a scholar. One of the scholars that I've used in developing this class, his name is Gundry, Gundry. Let's see. People Spirit. Here's his theory. And you can use this or not, or you can research this. His theory in Mark and Matthew is that evil spirits, the word evil spirit or demon that we're going to read in our passage, simply means a Roman soldier. That when we say, who is the Son of God, is he somebody that can drive out even the Romans? Or the demons, the spirits, the evil spirits, turn and admit that he's the Son of God and the true King. He's going to argue that means the Romans are acknowledging God. Now, I don't have time, and it's pretty over our heads to get into this idea, but here's why I'm explaining this. Firstly, I'm not saying that this is what I'm committing to being it, but this is a very popular, very, very incredibly talented evangelical scholar, and he says, yes, this is a metaphor, using metaphorical literary words to stress just how submissive all people are to God, to Christ. I want us to start expanding our way of thinking about the Bible, that there is literary things happening that we don't notice necessarily, right? There are events and hidden words that we won't notice in our culture and our context because we think that things mean basic, just I pick it up, I read it, that's what it means. It's not that. There's something more to it. We need to start thinking with some creativity and background, right? Use our book today, our context, to say, well, what is the Essene community? What does Jesus really mean? Our final thing, very final thing, and our final section are all the same, is Jesus expanding his family to include all people that obey him. Jesus has his mother and brother show up, and they say, his mother and brothers, I should say, and they try to get him. Now, I think it's Matthew. They mention that he might be crazy, and people are concerned he's a crazy person. Here's the thing about their society: to have a crazy person as a sibling or as a family member does not mean you have a crazy person as a family member. It means you are a crazy family. They live in what's called an honor-shame society. This is how I like to structure my class. Just kidding, sort of. Honor and shame. Things are all about honoring people or shaming people. In today's society, it is, well, I'll honor you if you have money. It's a hierarchical thing of who is over you. For them, you get to be over somebody if you are more honored, right? If you have more honor, do the right thing more often, or we will shame you. And because of this, it meant your whole family was involved in this. So if I go up and become an alcoholic, they just assume my whole family is bad, and nobody in the community will talk to my family anymore because I'm an alcoholic. So if I reject you, if I leave and I dishonor somebody, just like our book today with the Essenes, if I leave and I go, I'm going to be part of the Essenes, they're not ever going to do anything with me, and they're going to reject my family. So when Jesus makes the claim, all people are my brothers and sisters, therefore turning away his family and shaming them, he is shaming his family. We're going to talk about this more, but we do see it when Jesus says you need to hate and turn away from your brothers and mothers and follow me, right? Turn away from your family, hate them to love me. This is a big deal. To follow Christ is to literally hate and harm. It's active harm upon them because of our obedience and following of Jesus. Right? It is an active harm to go do these righteous things. So that being said, I'm going to read from Mark chapter 3. Sorry, we're reading Mark chapter 3 today, and then you have the rest of class to work, and I can help you, or you can from there find something else you need to work on. Because as I said, today's assignment will be due at the beginning of next class. Yeah. Oh, I'll put that up. So today was Luke, if you're reading an even numbered Bible, Luke chapters 7 and 8, and Matthew chapters 10 and 11. So Luke chapters 7 and 8, Matthew chapters 10 and 11, and Mark chapter 3. All right, I will read Mark chapter 3 out loud here. Jesus went into the synagogue again, and notice that this story and some of your guys' things, this story was said in a different order. Jesus went into the synagogue again, and noticed a man with a deformed hand. Since it was the Sabbath, Jesus' enemies watched him closely. If he healed the man's hand, they planned to accuse him of working on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the deformed hand, "Come and stand in front of everyone." Then he turned to his critics and asked, "Does the law permit good deeds on the Sabbath, or is it a day for doing evil? Is this a day to save life or to destroy it?" But they wouldn't answer him. He looked around at them angrily and was deeply saddened by their hard hearts. Then he said to the man, "Hold out your hand." So the man held out his hand, and it was restored. At once the Pharisees went away and met with the supporters of Herod to plot how to kill Jesus. Jesus went out to the lake with his disciples, and a large crowd followed him. They came from all over Galilee, Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea from east of the Jordan River, and even from as far north as Tyre and Sidon. The news about his miracles had spread far and wide, and vast numbers of people came to see him. Jesus instructed his disciples to have a boat ready so the crowd would not crush him. He had healed many people that day, so all the sick people eagerly pushed forward to touch him. And whenever those possessed by evil spirits caught sight of him, the spirits would throw them to the ground in front of him, shrieking, "You are the Son of God." But Jesus sternly commanded the spirits not to reveal who he was. Afterward, Jesus went up on a mountain and called out the ones he wanted to go with him, and they came to him. Then he appointed 12 of them and called them his apostles. They were to accompany him, and he would send them out to preach, giving them authority to cast out demons. These are the 12 he chose: Simon, who he named Peter, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, but Jesus nicknamed them sons of thunder, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed him. One time Jesus entered a house, and the crowds began to gather again. Soon he and his disciples couldn't even find time to eat. When his family heard what was happening, they tried to take him away. He's out of his mind, they said. But the teachers of religious law who had arrived from Jerusalem said, he's possessed by the Satan, the accuser, the prince of demons. That's where he gets the power to cast out demons. Jesus called them over and responded with an illustration. How can the accuser cast out the accuser, he asked. A kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. Similarly, a family splintered by feuding will all fall apart. And if the accuser is divided and fights against himself, how can he stand? He would never survive. Let me illustrate this further. Who is powerful enough to enter the house of a strong man and plunder his goods? Only someone even stronger. Someone who could tie him up and then plunder his house. I tell you the truth, all sin and blasphemy can be forgiven. But anyone who blasphemes the Holy Spirit will never be forgiven. This is a sin with eternal consequences. He told them this because they were saying, he is possessed by an evil spirit. Then Jesus' mother and brothers came to see him. They stood outside and sent word for him to come out and talk with them. There was a crowd sitting around Jesus, and someone said, your mother and your brothers are outside asking for you. Jesus replied, who is my mother? Who are my brothers? And he looked at those around him and said, look, these are my mothers and brothers. Anyone who does God's will is my brother and sister and mother. All right, you have the rest of class to work on things.